Only one thing left to do, Your Honor. Take both of us to jail and have that be the end of it. Can't even be surprised it's come down to the locked room. This accomplice nonsense is getting unreal, though. How stubborn can he be about going for mutual destruction? Yeah. Hang in there. This has to be the last thing he's got left. You're right. Let's do this and finally get out of this mess. I've got to stay focused. This is a remnant of the suffering created by Than Lead. It's my responsibility to put an end to this. Even I'm still trying to figure out how we get this to work. There are plenty of other reasons to suspect you by now. I'm not the one on trial. Yet. What matters in the end is your involvement in Miss Holden's murder. There are a bunch of plain impossibilities unless you're the one who swallowed the key. You're lying about that? Honestly, that makes it plain obvious that you're guilty. You admitted to drilling the holes. It's just as possible you're her killer. Did you forget? This is a civil trial. Reasonable doubt won't cut it. Is you shooting Mrs. Holden more likely than not? That's the question. A lot of possibilities were raised to cast doubt on it, like the potential involvement of poison. But if the defendant intentionally hit the key, it destroys the case for her innocence. Fine. I guess I'll have to hear the objections. Tell me what's so impossible about my accusation. Sure. Drumroll, please. What are you basing this claim on? It'll trick a mind called critical thinking. Both of you and Mr. Holden. Huh? I guess trans rights? Both you and Mr. Holden were able to enter the study. You cannot walk through a locked door. Therefore, it was unlocked at the time. Is that something that can be disputed? Probably not. So not worth arguing about basic facts like that. Let's wait and see for now. Can we really be sure that the door was locked at the time? There could have been something else preventing the door from being opened. Damn, you're right. There's absolutely no evidence it was locked. Well, accept! How do you do this? Take that! There we go. Wanted to point out that the evidence directly states exactly that. It doesn't really matter if the witnesses could tell. The door was found in a locked state. And the only time that could have been done is after Mrs. Holden entered the study. Which seems a little contradictory, don't you think? Is it really out of the question that the door could have been locked any other way? Given the lengths you went to for everything else. Who's to say you didn't manage to get a duplicate key? Amazing logic there. I guess anything is just possible now, proof or not. Really though, did you even read the description of this key? Anyone? Keys, anyone? Of course it is Blackrune, so it has to come down to keys. Even the tech expert said it's impossible to duplicate. But even if we ignore that and say I could have used some lockpicking trick, how and when exactly? Or if we need to lock the study after Mrs. Holden entered it, while it was being watched. Now, I'll give myself props to managing to be pretty stealthy, but that's clearly beyond me. Here's some good points. It might be unwise to push this unless I have some good counter-argument. We're back off for now. We're going to be careful. There's no straightforward method anything else could have locked the door. If there's evidence something like that is possible, I should just present it directly. Except it doesn't make any sense for me to do that. It makes perfect sense. People do desperate things when cornered. Compared to whatever I must have been thinking to plant the key like that, this is a lot more sensible. The truth remains the truth, whether you want it to be true or not. Don't start talking like him. But that's the point. You did something that ridiculous, so it'll be less likely to suspect than the simple explanation. I think the imposter stunt established you're crazy enough. This isn't beyond you. Excuse me, I'm not crazy. That's pretty uncouth of you. The voices in my head assure me I'm perfectly sane. Like I said, this is a civil trial. What's more likely than not? You hiding the key because you're a killer, or the door getting locked by some unknown magic trick. Panic murder is a safer bet here. You can trust me. I'm a bit of an expert on that myself. If it had to be one of those two things, which is what it looks like, then logic and the evidence still point to you in this case, defendant. I doubt there's any ground I can gain. With arguing plausibility alone. Figuring out and proving what happened might be the only way to get out of this. Freaking locked rooms, I never get them right. They shouldn't be too difficult at this point. We know he didn't have access to the key. That's the whole point of the dentist appointment. That seriously narrows down the kind of tricks he could have pulled to accomplish this. True, basically means he couldn't have locked the door, right? At least not with the key. There's got to have been some kind of illusion of play that threw us for a loop. He said it was unlocked, then it was locked. Only the key can lock or unlock it. The way I see it, one of these three assumptions has to be wrong. I mean, can you walk through a locked door? Was the door that they walked through the same door? Take a look at the diagram. No, I don't see how it could be a different door, but... Press him on nose then. Keep questioning him until you see a way he could have done it. There don't seem to be any limits how far this murderer was willing to go. I'll break free of this frame and end this. The Reaper won't have this last lap. So I'm thinking, the door must have always been locked. What are you basing this claim on? What if I actually can walk through a locked door? Oh, sorry, must be a skill issue on my part. Some things cannot be brute force. It's time you learn that instead of fighting basic logic. No, there are situations where you can still enter a room, even if the door is technically locked. I guess I could have locked the door, but it's not like fully closed, maybe? It could have been locked while open. Then, the frame would not have held it in place. Or you could straight up have broken... just have a broken door frame. That's how the witnesses entered, after all. Sure, if you want to have this so badly, you can have it. Just a couple of questions. Was the door broken when you passed through it? Honestly, that's not something I paid attention to. The lights were dim and I was focused on getting in quickly. It could very much have already been broken. Okay, not like your word on that would have been worth much anyway. If you have any proof to back that up, by all means. Of course, we both know this is pointless. It couldn't have been pre-broken. It was still working properly when the witnesses got there, after all. You'd be best equipped to tell us you're right there on the other side. Did somebody block the door from the inside with a chair or something? Solid move, absolutely doable for anyone physically present inside the room. Didn't see anything like that, but it's all completely unobstructed from the inside. It's hard to argue with. I think I skipped past some dialogue when I was pressing that because I thought it would be the same. the door was locked but openable earlier, like I suggested, and this isn't a contradiction. It'd just be a matter of how it went from being locked improperly to seeming actually locked. Well, yeah, you've gone over this with the ombrophobic lawyer before. What's ombrophobic? I actually don't know. I looked that up real quick, actually. A fear of rain. I guess that makes sense. She's got the umbrella. You'd be best equipped to tell us. You're right there on the other side. Did somebody block the door from the inside with a chair or something? Solid move. Absolutely doable for anyone physically present inside the room. Well, I didn't see anything like that, but the door locked completely unobstructed from the inside. That's hard to argue with. But to be sure what I want to argue here, or I might regret it. Is there any method you could have realistically used to keep the door in place? Fixing the door with something like tape or glue. Having a force push-pull on the door. Obstructing the door's path with something. Does the table have wheels? I can't quite tell. Something like tape or glue. What were the tools he had again? The door could have been sealed shut with tape or strong glue. Breaking open such a door would be similar to a locked one, as would only be initial resistance. Well, we could absolutely use some of that right now. For your mouth, that is. You'd be safe from any dentist and we wouldn't have to endure this nonsense anymore. Win-win. Look where it stands. What point? Hello? Where's this tape or glue if it was actually used? It should have been found at the scene then. And that's not even the biggest issue. How would I have applied it to the door after you and Mrs. Holden entered, but before the witnesses? Well, with glue, it could have been slow to dry. So enough that it didn't hold the door closed yet. That's not reliable. Same issue as the slow-acting poison from before. No way to apply that preemptively and be sure it would take effect only after you entered. It may sound like it can't be done, but if you use this to seal the door shut, some of those problems can be avoided. Ah. A resin that quickly hardens when exposed to light. Because if it just acts normally. Oh, that's how they got in the hole. Think about it like this. There's left wooden fragments and bits of debris and Mr. Dow's blood. So Mr. Dow didn't just drop blood down those holes. He also dropped photopolymers down. Well, that might be usable. I can't really argue that unless I can explain what happened to it. So the derailleur was stuck on the lower floor. You could not have removed anything from the scene after that fact. What happened to it? It would have to be removed from the room, right? Or actually... No, but it would have been examined quite thoroughly, wouldn't it? We'll say this for now. Was it removed from the room? Don't have to know who or what removed it. How did it get removed from the room? Same as the dial? This could have kept the door closed, right? Make sure to hold on to that. Gonna need that to secure the door of your cell. I see nothing more than an implausible guess. To which was a stretch, it seems. Did he have nothing at his disposal that could have helped him accomplish this? We'll still say the holes. What if it's still in the room? It would still be at the door area, right? Actually, I can, I could technically cheat there. I haven't explained it before. It's the thing with where the bottom left shows you what frame number this takes you to. But I have scanned this room and oh, did that change slightly? I wasn't clicking the precise right area behind the door. I wonder how much you want to paint this option is ridiculous to see through it. Yeah, I guess it's the corner behind the door that I was thinking of. I didn't think it would have to be that specific, but glad I checked at least. We very much had access to something to lock the door with. The same material used to fix the holes. How? How is that supposed to be an explanation? What was being used for that again? They're called photopolymers, Your Honor. A substance that hardens in response to light is not unlike regular glue. However, this makes it possible to time when you actually want to harden them. He could have applied this substance to the hinges of the door. In its liquid form, it would stick to them even when the door opened. Then, all he had to do was harden them at the right moment. The next baseless claim, nothing remotely of the sort was found in the room. How the hell did you get the time to analyse every single speck of dust? Hardly. The fact of the matter is, some debris was found in the corner behind the door. This appeared to simply be bits of the wall that came off when the door collided with it, but if the door can be pre-broken, the wall can be pre-damaged as well. When the hardened photopolymers broke off, they blended with the debris from the wall. Good one. You're still keeping this up? Ooh, that's what I should be saying. That's what I should be saying. I need a drink. So this stuff hardens pretty fast when it's left out in the light. Oh dear. Doesn't make it any different from fast-acting glue then. Well done. What do you mean? If these weren't exposed to light before me and Mrs. Holden entered the room, there's no issue. And how would I have prevented that? Tell me, Leah. Were the lights in the study on? Don't bother answering that. We both know they were on the whole time. See the light yet? There's no plans in advance would have hardened up on the spot. Okay, but that's... well, I suppose it's true. We done with letting her cook up this stuff yet? This is unworkable as the rest of it. It did sound promising for a moment, so I'll spare you the penalty, Miss Chase. Resume the cross-examination, Mr. Drill. Miserably, Your Honor. Seriously? Seemed to crumble for a moment, but no dice? Our door doesn't just... Ah, haha. A nice fake out there. It's reminds me of the bit in Rise from the Ashes where Damon Gant interrupts Lana's final testimony, cross-examination. I mean, all of you are objectively incorrect. Excuse the interruption. And thanks for saving us, by the way. Dr. Hellinger, what is it this time? I noticed that a piece of evidence is being grossly mischaracterized. To ensure that the conclusions here are accurate, there is a need to clarify something. This is decidedly not your decision to make. Do you not possess the intellectual capacity to remember this? You've given Aurelia quite enough unnecessary help. All it accomplishes is prolong this farce. That is precisely the attitude which has led to many incorrect convictions. How disappointing. I hoped you were more intelligent than this, but it seems you're incapable of grasping your standing. I will allow myself to spell it out. You should be aware of the connections I have in this state. I observe you providing any more unauthorized help to Aurelia. The Preston estate will ensure that you regret your acts of insubordination. My advocacy will convince the lawmakers of the state to help strip Alathea of all its privileges. Unless they are wise enough to terminate your contract before it comes to that. Start acting like a proper piece, and only make the moves you're told to. How about no? I see. Noted. It's clear that will be the more efficient move. However, I'm going to disregard that instruction, Victoria Preston. I beg your pardon? Even if my machines give accurate results, their utility depends on the humans who use them. There's no measurable merit in being your tool. It's counterproductive, and you're objectively unlikable. You. Please calm down, Miss Preston. We should clearly listen to the detective's insights. Thank you, Your Honour. This regards to the debate about the photopolymers you are having. It sounds like the one who gave you this data didn't accurately convey my explanation. Well, wouldn't be the first time. What did we get wrong? Is that not how they work? Well, it's true these kinds of resins can be made to be hardened by light. The generally more common type is activated only by certain parts of the light spectrum. They're more practical if they're not immediately turned solid by everything. I suppose it is a small difference, but doesn't it invalidate the argument about the light in the study? There are types of this resin that can only activate with high energy frequencies like blue or UV light. The lights in the study are not only dim, there's practically no blue light present, and the curtains cover all the windows. Coincidentally, dentists widely use the type that activate with blue light for their fillings, and the conditions in the study were perfect for photopolymers to not harden their own. Thanks, Detective. I almost fell for it. Your approach may not appear efficient, but you haven't flunked completely so far. I thought my method was giving me an advantage, yet this witness turned it against me. It was humbling. It's the least I can do to make up for it. Can you demonstrate your innocence? I'd like to evaluate the results of your method. There should be more than enough to prove it. You're done, Einstein, because this change does nothing. So what if it didn't harden from the light? That leads to the same problem in reverse. The curtains make it impossible for me to shine light onto the study. Thus, I couldn't have used that to lock the door. It's over, Mr. Driel, and I think you know it. It'll never be over for you and me. I suppose it is time to resume the cross-examination. Please resume your testimony and add your rebuttal, witness. Enjoy your last moments. I know what I have to do. We'll see the updated totals first. There are variants which only harden when exposed to a specific type of light, usually blue or UV. Carpet fibers placed on top. I couldn't have blocked the door with photopolymers. There's no light there to harden them. Displays merely a blue screen when switched on. Would it have needed to come from inside the study? The hinges are on the inside. There wouldn't be any light from the hallway reaching them. And if I recall correctly, the TV was positioned to face the door, right? Well, at least sort of semi goes in that direction. I don't know. Even if it did reach them, that would prematurely ruin this theory of yours all the same. And the curtains were drawn, no opening there either. Sure, I can accept that. In order for this to work, we need to get a strong light source inside the study. If that's what's needed, I think I've got the thing to enlighten us all. So we playing the TV? I think we are. Finally, we get to present this TV again. It's been a while. Let's pretend this is still a mystery. It's obvious that you intend to lock the door. A very strong source of blue light. Doesn't that ring any bells? The old TV provided exactly that. Ah. No! Oh my! The bigger picture. I grasped it. All the mysteries have been solved. Let's go through it from the beginning, shall we? Mr. Drill's plan for this crime must have been decided months ago. There's quite a bit of preparation that went into it. This tower, the former residence of the Reaper, was chosen as a location for several reasons. To frame me for murder, Mr. Drill needed a victim. Melanie Holden suited the role. He convinced her that I was a problem she needed to get rid of to hide her own crimes. Two of them came with a plan to lure me to the study, using this book as the bait. Mrs. Holden thought she could stab me in the back there and make it look like self-defense. I suppose Mr. Drill offered to unload the bullets from my magazine during the dentist visit. She never seemed to hesitate despite me turning around and pulling my gun after all. Ah, she didn't know it was loaded. Or she thought it wasn't loaded. In other words. Of course, Mr. Drill never did anything of the sort. He wanted to die such a simple death. Objection! Is that the first time we've heard her objection? You don't have the privilege to speak like you've understood everything. To put it in your words, seriously? Someone with your supposed intellect should realise there's nothing left you can do. It's always been like that once we reach this point. Even if it took a bit longer this time around. You and your asinine bigger picture. You said Mrs. Holden was going to shoot herself to make it look like self-defense. Right. That was likely the plan after using the actress on TV to make it sound like I threatened her. Ha! That makes no sense if Mr. Drill promised to remove the bullets. She would have had no bullets to shoot herself with. We didn't find any on her. Yeah, that's about as trivial as a point I figured you'd make. Of course, this is easily accounted for. We shouldn't need any bullets to shoot herself. She could just have them fired into the room by Drill. That's the reason why he bought his Drill. Right? That's what I think, anyway. Obviously, we don't actually... wait a second. That might be a bit outlandish. She faked the wound was something else. Someone would still question why there was no bullet. The simpler approach. Who's to say she brought no bullets with her? The fact that none were found is fairly meaningless. We already know your client removed this from her pocket. If she was trying to keep suspicion from her mother, she would have naturally taken the bullets as well. Such a... I actually forgot about that point. She was in on it. Perfectly simple explanation you could have figured yourself? Agreed. Wait. Mr. Drill took care of some other things in the tower in advance. He prepared a suitable target on the cleaning platform and loaded it to the display room. He broke the door to the study in advance. I imagine he told Mrs. Holden that this would make it look more like a proper break-in. However, he also stole the key, unbeknownst to him. The photo polymers were also applied by him to the hinges at some point. This was what he did inside the tower, but there was more to do before the day of the auction. In order to have a bullet to frame me with, Mr. Driel returned and attacked the tower with a gun. He was trying to make himself look like a random madman. Of course, the point was to get a bullet to the top, like I explained previously. The stage was almost set. The final piece of the setup was my dentist appointment. There, he saw the barrel of my gun and also managed to slip the key into my anesthetized mouth. He also removed one bullet from my magazine, so it looked like I fired a shot. No, everything was ready for the next day. The day of the crime. Mr. Driel likely arrived early as possible to avoid too many onlookers. Preferring to stay anonymous for this, he provided the guard with a fake ID. He slipped into the display room and cut a path onto the suspended platform outside. After retrieving the bullet he fired there, it was time to wait. Everything went as he hoped for the moment. I sadly took the bait. I entered the tower, intending to search for the book during the auction. Objection! Your ignorance is finally on full display! Have you not realized that the metal detector should have picked up on the key in my body? I never addressed that until now because it just felt too obvious. But to make sure you're able to follow, here's what happened. The detector did in fact detect the key. The detector did go off when I stepped through it. All of us merely assumed that the pistol was the only thing that was being detected. Of course, once I showed that to him, he didn't bother making me do the check again without it. Which, to not be too harsh on him, was entirely fair. What could I have really had on me to be worse than a weapon? That's a stupid coincidence. What if you hadn't brought your gun or taken it off before the check? You seem to assume this would have been a problem. But what would any of us have really thought then? The guard might have pat me down, since this doesn't to be found on me. Anyone would have just been forced to conclude it's simply a malfunction. Am I a weird incident at best, and that I've been able to proceed all the same? Anyway, back to the real mysteries. The auction began as planned. Oh, of course, the item I was after wasn't there. After showing everyone the knife, Mrs. Holden intentionally paused the auction to give me an opening. And I walked straight into it. This is where Mrs. Holden's plan derailed, however. The moment she drew the knife, a deadly poison, courtesy of Dr. Lead, was released. And so, she was the one to die instead. That wasn't all to transpire. It was time for Mr. Driel to execute the rest of his plan, keeping closely following the situation in the study, as his next actions depend on it. No! No! How was Mr. Driel able to follow what was going on? How very predictable. The answer is naturally not that complicated. Are those two the same thing? But, I guess I'll say this. Simple, he pressed a listening device against the study wall. Tasteless, how would he have gotten something that suspicious into the building? I guess I'll have to clarify for you. There's nothing notable about a doctor bringing a stethoscope. It's standard equipment, even for dentists. Oh, that's what he meant by listening device. The study was being treated like a medical patient. Mr. Driel paid close attention to what was going on inside. However, our approach still ended up making the proper diagnosis more difficult. And now his plan was going to be derailed by unknown factors. The original intent must have been to turn on the TV at some point after Mrs. Holden's death. He didn't see enough to perfectly time it with a collapse or anything, but that wasn't needed. If they'd run out of the room before that. We could have still presented the locked door to the guests without any issues. Nobody would have bought my story that Mrs. Holden simply collapsed. The key was too damning of evidence. But he never got a chance to do it himself. Unbeknownst to him, there was someone directly witnessing the crime, Marco Poli. And this person carried an alternate means to turn on the TV. The struggle started with her so much, she ended up doing just that. Whether that was good or bad luck for our culprit is debatable. This certainly confused him about whether I actually shot Mrs. Holden for a moment. That got cleared up once the witnesses broke the door and mentioned the number of bullets. Knowing that I didn't shoot, he had to add the final detail himself. The noise of the detective's machines provided cover for the drilling a hole through the ceiling. Yet this is where another wrench was thrown into his plan. Mr. Drill made a blunder, probably the result of his brief confusion. He determined where the body dropped, but failed to account for the fact that the floor had rotated. This led to him drilling in the wrong spot and wounding Mr. Darrell. In order to correct his mistake, he filled the hole and drilled into the right spot this time. Hence why he got rid of the drill bit. So he's the one who injured Darrell, and luckily for him, Darrell couldn't feel anything down there. Otherwise the jig would have been up. But we assumed he just stepped in some wooden debris. Out of view below the floor, a shot was fired right into Mrs. Holden's chest. The evidence had been planted. After covering up this hole as well, the operation was complete. All he had to do at that point was clean up the remaining evidence and return upstairs. Once he was blending in with the other guests, there may have been no practical way to ever catch him. But no plan can account for the fickleness of fortune. The Lighthouse didn't want to grant him such an easy exit. Mr. Poli, who was split off with the group to look for his daughter, did something unthinkable. He jumped onto the platform that had been left outside the lower floor. This put him in a position to hear the second shot and spot the culprit himself. Were it really the glasses that made him look like the Reaper? Or the expression of someone who had just finished doing the devil's work? The building had already rotated enough that the hole in the window didn't line up with the platform. Mr. Poli raised it back up and took away the only way of escape. There was nothing Mr. Drill could do about it. He was trapped. So he was always planning to get back up there using the... that makes sense. The trial began without the absence being discovered. Mr. Poli's testimony was eventually came to light. Mr. Drill kept tabs on this as well as he could by listening through the floor. He naturally didn't intend to be found and decided to hide in the justice room. Judge, ignorance has no... Yeah. Now you'll question why he chose to hide there. The main hall was here, so... Yeah, if he rotated... You can go to any room you wanted down there, of course, but... You'd have to keep an eye on the main hall through one of those rooms. Yeah. Now you'll question why he would choose to hide there. After all, it made much more sense for him to hide by staying in the secret room. His decision to go in another room is easily understood when you consider this factor, however. Brightness, noise level, temperature, having a gun. Yeah, if the hole's been cut out of glass, it would be brighter, wouldn't it? I don't know. I see no reason why there should be an appreciable difference in brightness between the rooms. Even if it was darker and just as I thought, that would make you feel much safer than a hidden room. What noise? There's no indication it was different between the room. Oh, temperature. We'll say having a gun just as a joke. Well, he could have taken the gun with him to any room, doesn't make a difference. It's cold outside today. I imagine the altitude doesn't help. Mr. Poley found that out when he tried to hide in the display room, and that room was still insulated by a curtain. It would have been worse without. With the open hole in the window, temperature and non-maleficence would have dropped to freezing. Staying in such conditions for too long could have been very deadly for your health. Mr. Driel had no way of knowing how long the Hellinger's investigation would take. He decided it wasn't worth the risk and took his chances with another room instead. Needless to say, he was in a dire situation regardless. He breathed a brief sigh of relief when the first two people who just appeared to leave. However, Mr. Guard had noticed him after all, so the culprit had to resort to plan B. Getting rid of the witnesses. He first tried to ambush Mr. Guard with one of his pens, as it was less likely to alert the others, I imagine. That clearly didn't work. The guard stood his ground with his baton and managed to deflect the pen. Unfortunately, Mr. Driel also had a gun, with which he promptly resorted to. He may very well have tried to kill everyone with it if given the chance. Perhaps leave Lillian as the sole survivor to frame her. Mr. Guard didn't go down with a single shot because of his bulletproof vest. I'm trying. What does he mean by pen? Actually, I completely forgot what they're talking about there. I don't remember that. I remember the baton. Here's the small ink stain. I remember we talked about ink, didn't we, in the previous times, but that was to show who signed. Oh, I don't know. Let's keep going. Mr. Guard didn't go down without a single shot because of his bulletproof vest. In fact, he forced Mr. Driel to spend the entire magazine on him. If it hadn't been for one unlucky hit, he would have survived. Plan B was now ruined. He didn't want to be outnumbered with a weapon and escape to the secret room. Yeah, because the magazine was empty. He fired one of the bullets to shoot Holden, and then the other 5 were all used on Guard. Mr. Covert chased after him but fell victim to an ambush. Mr. Driel then disguised himself, which could be called Plan C. Killing the others was no longer viable without a gun. The drone would have instantly incapacitated him if he tried that. Thus he was forced to play along, and we know the rest. Did I get everything right, Mr. Driel? There's still no proof though. Laughable. We can chip the hinges and behind it off with a photo of Hollyman leftovers. You all know that I'll try to claim something like that. I'm actually the one that planted them there. Except I had zero reason to do anything like that. If I still had the key, there'd be no need to lock the door in such an odd way. It wouldn't even make sense that I would conveniently bring a material like that. But, good effort. I'm sure everyone here can see through your ruse, though. Right, guys? This was planned from the start. She intentionally got caught, don't you see? All to frame me. Why is everyone looking so serious? So staring at me? Enough with this prank. Smile. Let me see your teeth, please. I can fix them. Come now. Say ah. Ah, say ah! Oh, I think I scared the dog a bit there. She's fine. The detective informed me that her findings have confirmed Miss Chase's theory about the door. It appears she's been right about everything. I actually did it. It's over. It hasn't sunk in yet, but case closed, Your Honor. All smug after beating someone down. I knew that was your true nature. Oh, I can guess what you're thinking. Who am I to judge, right? Let's lay out the reasons then. What are you talking about? I've gone over your motive. You're a member of the JP Corporation. Don't play dumb with me. You know that makes no sense. Since when did that group do something like this? It was satisfied until it lists the crimes of 0 suspects. I'm obviously not involved with them. Is this even a plot twist? Then why would you do any of this? That's the billion-dollar question. Maybe you need to read that book again you care so much about. That might ring some bells. That's right. You'll find I was one of his victims. There's the look. Didn't want to think about that option, did you? You suddenly want the truth so badly? I'll give you the truth. I still remember it well. The worst decision of my life. Hey there. Me. Yeah, would you be interested in participating in the study? Sure, I love being scammed. I'm not after your money. This is actually a chance for you to earn some. That definitely doesn't sound like something a scammer would say. There's a normal thing here. At least hear me out. You're a student like me, right? You really shouldn't be that picky. Well, she seems enthusiastic enough. Can't hurt to listen. It's actually what I was actually thinking about this, because I'm not sure. I don't remember if I said it out loud, but when I was thinking of like the reason why he's going after Aurelia isn't because like all of this just to get revenge for a dead man. No, what they were actually what he was actually trying to accomplish was just revenge. All right, what kind of study? Can't really tell you too much. That ruins the point of psychological studies. You'll have to do a few simple tasks and answer some questions. What are you studying, by the way? Psychology. Oh, what a coincidence. The study is actually related to psychology. Do you know Dr. Lead? He's running it. Wait, that Dr. Lead? Do I know him? He's only one of the most... Do I know him? He's only one of the most legendary figures in the field. Those were the days. I was a young student, eager to make a name for myself. Of course, I didn't pass up the chance to meet the famous Stan Lee. No points for guessing how well that went. He seems to have taken a liking to me from the start, called me promising. It didn't take long to see his true colours. He manipulated, guilt-tripped and tortured me, both mentally and physically. Heard of the milligram experiment? Stuff like that, but on steroids. I'd rather not recall it all. I actually haven't, so I mean, I won't look it up now, but after this is done, we beat this case, and I finish recording, I'll go look it up, and you can look it up right now if you want. Stuff like that, but on steroids. I'd rather recall it all. Why was it necessary to cause so much suffering? I think, in hindsight, I can wait for a guess. The purpose was probably to erase our emotions, to turn us into ruthless killers he could introduce into his organization. He tried to break our will so we would do his bidding. Resistance was futile. I was totally helpless whatever nightmares he dreamt up for me. You don't really look like you're being held captive in this photo. Was this a public event? Oh, he didn't lock his victims away all the time. Had to at least give the appearance everything was normal. So have a look at that newspaper again. Yeah, he's just like standing there. And, you know, there's a bit of a menacing look for someone who's trying to make it look normal. As his favourite subject, I was forced to accompany him to many events like that one. I like some kind of assistant for him. Why didn't you ask anyone for help then? You could have called the police. Oh sure, since you're a member of a group of assassins with government connections to boot. What then? Just hide in a bunker and pray that'll be enough to stop them. What a genius plan. You're gonna wind up decapitated in a locked room somewhere. But the Leib was no idiot. He let us run around freely because he knew we'd never dare to try anything. If anything, I just end up reinforcing her helplessness. I have thought of many plans to make it stop. In fact, in the end, none of them mattered. One day, the man behind it all simply stopped contacting me. The BU2 incident happened. Thornley vanished in that mansion, never to return. Did he die? Escape to some foreign country? The police weren't sharing much. I guess we'll just never know. Don't get me wrong. It was a massive relief. Not complaining there. On the other hand, it's also unnerving to not know for sure. Where was the closure? Where was the justice? Shouldn't somebody have been doing something about this? Nobody even knew what he'd done. How many people he'd hurt? He was treated as a tragic victim. Nobody had time for his victims. There were lots of people making wild claims as the news focused on the mystery. And everyone who was there being a suspect and illegitimate info was simply drowned out anyway. Those victims will have to just come to terms with it on their own. What a joke. How are we supposed to move on? There's no getting rid of this pain. Those nightmares will always be with me. You call yourself the Reaper, and why haven't you killed me by now? That would have been better than leaving me with these memories. When an article came out a year later, I was naive enough to have some hope. But people didn't miss the fact that I was in this photo. And arrived at the same wrong conclusion you presented earlier in this trial. They saw I accompanied the Reaper, and immediately said to be guilty by association. Everyone in the field of psychology knew that article. Rather than hear me out, they wanted to keep their hands clean. So that's another reason they wanted to get revenge. I was forced away, and ended up trying to become a dentist instead. There was still one person who I wanted to seek out. The woman who wrote the article. The one who beckoned me into this nightmare in the first place. Finding you again wasn't simple. You could get your address from the news agency. Still, I knew where you studied, and I was eventually able to track you down. But you don't even remember that, do you? Who's there? I'm, with before, right? It's about Dan Lead. Used to send students to him. Are you one of his? Please, just open the door. I need to talk about the article you wrote. I don't know what you're talking about. What? No, I definitely got the right person. Go away! This is the only thing that can help me. At least hear me out. Leave or I'll call the police. Damn. So that was him. If I'd have known that you... Oh, I get it. I finally understood how things worked after that. The simple truth is that nobody gives a shit about people like us. It goes for all of you here. None of you ever cared about the truth or justice. You only care for profit, ego, or covering your own behind. Protest all you want! You're proving my point by trying to shut me up. There's a fine detail that hadn't escaped me. Aurelia Chase used to be collaborator of Dr. Lead, leading countless students to their doom. That naturally didn't get addressed at all in her article. It was never about justice. She took advantage of her knowledge for money and fame, and ended up being the one to suffer for it once again. Now, let me ask you. Can you truly and honestly say I'm wrong for trying to take things into my own hands? Everyone else was only looking out for themselves. The police demonstratively wouldn't do it. I like to think that this accountability is a good thing. Do you? I'm sorry, but your opinion is immediately rejected because you killed Louis Gott. You killed me. Why did you kill me? And he didn't do anything to anyone. Wasn't looking forward to seeing you again. Hard to believe he has an even worse building somewhere. It is me. Whoa, hold up a second. What does a window cleaner need this for? I'm also a general handyman. Hard to make ends meet with just cleaning. Though, this gig got decent pay. Huh, I feel ya. Makes sense to me. Alright, stay safe up there. Same to you. Hold it, what happened to the usual person? Well, disguise doesn't last long. I can spot a snoop when I see one. I thought we had an agreement. Who are you working for? And why do you look familiar? She recognizes me. Might work in my favor. Greetings, Mrs. Holden. You likely recognize me from a certain newspaper article. Indeed, I am an associate of your former client. I've come here on behalf of our organization. I would appreciate visits without prior appointments. Sure. Have your first complaint to an assassin be that he showed up unannounced. You must understand that we are forced to be discreet in the current situation. Any more contact unnecessary would have been too risky. Yet you still walked right past the FBI. I think you're looking to discuss worthwhile business with me then. I'm ready to deliver an urgent warning, as well as a proposal to take care of it. Let's hear this elsewhere. I see. However, there's nothing for this journalist to find. The only records I keep are perfectly unproblematic. Look, I wasn't implying otherwise. I'm sure your business is being conducted with the greatest care. But still, when it takes one client letting slip more than they're supposed to. I take great care they don't. Look, I would have said the exact same thing about our organization. This clearly isn't just your average journalist. She got her hands on proof that we absolutely believed to have been destroyed. She can get to the Reaper, she can definitely get to you. And you propose that I deal with this? Even though this is your primary line of business, not mine? It's clear you want revenge. Why don't you just handle it? It doesn't have to be complicated. Figured she'd be the toughest customer. Maybe I'm lucky she didn't see through me yet. It's, in fact, not that simple. This has to be an open and shut case. If there's any doubt, then her current investigation efforts will be looked into, which would, at the moment, point straight towards you. And we don't know how much she knows already. You wouldn't want that risk. We're bound to purity by our credo. If we were to personally handle this matter, it would most definitely not appear to be an accident. What an irritating rule. So there's really only one way to avoid a disturbance. Very well, let's hear your proposal. Would you look at that? You just agreed to a cold-blooded murder deal. No worries, that's about what I expected after you enabled all those atrocities with some cash. People left a deadly poison on knife, and the tiny cut will quickly lead to death. I see, that will make it an accident, unless someone can show that I knew about that. Keep in mind, this poison becomes harmless within minutes after being exposed to air. You'll have to keep it sheathed until the right moment. Very well. The study is prepared now, but what about this book you mentioned? If it's as important as you say, we could simply force her to stop her investigation. A red book with a pentagram on the front. Nothing in this room fits that description. Yes. Sadly, no one knows what happened to it, so our idea won't work. It doesn't matter though. She will come as long as she believes it is here. If you mention it in the list of auctioned items, she is bound to appear for it. A shame. Finally, about this, civil trial ideas. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. What's the point? Would you rather deal with the police? They would just arrest you if you give them an excuse. I know an appropriate detective and a lawyer you can call instead. Besides, think of the money her estate might have to pay. This could also take care of a certain mob problem. You're well informed. I prefer if you didn't worry about problems that have nothing to do with this. My daughter's situation is none of your business.
clear? Fine. But the police? This nonsense is going to be declared a mistrial the moment it's finished. The police are a non-factor. They wouldn't dare anyway. The moment they realize the poison involved, they will go with the easiest option. You've got to be kidding me. I suspected as much, but the law really can't touch her at all. Well, leaving that fever dream of a trial aside, your plan is practical. Now leave. There's nothing else to discuss. Before that, let me finish cleaning the windows, to avoid suspicion. Suit yourself, but don't expect payment for that. I was able to put the final preparations into place. The only issue was that Mrs. Holden had no need to avoid the police. The outcome of a makeshift trial was an important to my plan, but to cover all contingencies, I had to make sure this particular detective was invited. Thankfully, I managed to sell the idea to her daughter after contacting her anonymously. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the stage was set for a final psychological experiment. Our subjects for this one are Aurelia Chase and Melanie Holden. Even though they've done many terrible things, simple retribution wouldn't have been proper. This wasn't vigilantism. They deserved their fair chance to prove themselves innocent. Mrs. Holden provided convenient buildings to criminals, but she never killed anyone directly. If she's no killer at heart, then she won't draw the knife. It's entirely up to her. Aurelia Chase led countless people to the Reaper and tried to profit from the very fact on top of it. But I might be mistaken. Perhaps she cares about the truth. Perhaps she does feel remorse. The book will be her test. All she has to do to prove herself is not show up. If she does try to obtain the proof of her crimes, it's clear she only ever cared about herself. Fittingly, her punishment will consist of being accused of a crime she didn't commit. It's entirely fair setup, no? Both have a chance at redemption. Of course, there are several ways things could play out in the study in unintended ways. It's possible for nobody to die, the least desirable result, nothing lost, nothing gained. It's also possible that both would perish from the poison. Since that still means both failed the test, it's the worst outcome. Still, it would be regrettable if Aurelia suffered the wrong punishment. Then there is option 3. Aurelia does actually shoot Mrs. Holden. It's acceptable. It means she is more despicable than premised, but justice will be served. Things ended up going the intended way. It was fortunately still the most likely outcome. You see now, it was all justified. You can't honestly say otherwise. All I tried was to ensure that people would suffer well-deserved consequences for their actions. And look at that. Both of them spectacularly failed the test. The truth really was worth that little to you, Aurelia Chase. It's all your fault. The suffering, these horrible memories. But you decided to cover up all the parts that didn't benefit you. In the end, my plan failed. It's all for nothing. Why am I not even surprised? Evidently never been the luckiest. But I never meant to. Save it. I don't want to hear your excuses. There's no fixing this mess with some hollow apology. He's right. What can I possibly say here? If Aurelia doesn't get to say anything, then I will. She made some bad decisions, but how can you know how she felt about them? Her actions are what matters. You think it makes me feel better knowing she felt really bad? Your whole plan aimed to make her feel bad, so I'd say yeah. And if you want to talk about actions, Aurelia owned up to her lies and mistakes, didn't you? How many people here can say they've ever done that? Trust me, it's rare. Amazing. You forgot the part where she had to be cornered and left with no other choice before that happened. Am I supposed to be impressed? Too little, too late.
And you're telling us all you did was totally fair? You have some nerve to say that after shooting someone completely innocent.
That wasn't part of the plan.
You were cornered and left with no choice? Apparently coming clean wasn't a possible choice for you then. If your plan was so justified, then why would you kill him just for uncovering it?
That was different.
If nobody cares about the truth, that apparently includes yourself. There wasn't anything fair about this. It was plain revenge to make yourself feel better.
Oh, it absolutely would have made me feel better. But so what? Should they just have gotten away with it? The guard knew who he was working for, and we don't have to go into Mr. Cover's corruption.
Enough! Enough is enough! Not only did you construct a devious plan to murder and frame another person, you didn't hesitate to add more victims the moment things failed to go as expected. If the lead's goal really was to turn you into a ruthless killer, then I'm afraid he succeeded. You are dismissed from the stand. Unless there are further objections, I will move to the verdict. It seems like Miss Preston is no longer present. For some reason, I'm not surprised. I will be sure to send a letter recommending her disbarment. As for Miss Chase, the matter has now been cleared up.
That's a bit harsh, Your Honor, but go on, I'm not stopping you.
I have no doubts this sentence will be the correct one.
Are you sure, Your Honor? Am I really not guilty? If it hadn't been for me, none of this... He would never have...
I'm afraid that question is outside my jurisdiction. You are not on trial for your past, Miss Chase. However, I will at least note one thing. If you are responsible, our criminal justice system has to shoulder equal blame. If Mr. Driel hadn't felt like going to the police was a fruitless effort, all of this might have been avoided. Regardless concerning the wrongful death of Mrs. Holden, the defendant is... Court is at last adjourned.
Ooh, yes. 6 months and... How many parts were we on again? I might actually, because we have been running for nearly 3 hours now, I might actually split this in half. But I don't want to just make too many parts, because I did say I wanted to do it all in one. And I have, aside from a few brief interruptions. But we've had 27 parts prior to this. So it's been a long case. We finally reached the end, I think. And this is one final twist.
Assuming the plaintiff is willing to let us leave now.
How do I put this?
Seeing how the true murderer has been discovered, you are still free to pursue legal action against him. In a proper court, preferably.
No dice. I could tell us a poor Beckett to remember his actions. Leave now. The elevator will work.
That's frankly more reasonable than I have come to expect.
Probably because I've mostly let my ex-lawyer speak for me. Another loss. It's not really that surprising. Thank you. Good game. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Oh, maybe she actually got me. That's rare. You mean to tell me she didn't care about the money, after all? I feel the answer might be more complicated than a yes or no. We actually made it. Wow, it's bright. True. Yo, we did it. Too much. You showed them. I can't believe we came out of that tower alive.
I mean, of course I knew you'd do it. Okay, even I can tell that's not right. That had too many close calls. Still hasn't fully sunk in the server. This isn't a dream. Need me to pinch you? Pass. I'm still good from the other punches. Haha, I get it though. It was totally amazing how you made Victoria rage quit. Something tells me she'll be back. True, can't ever shake off people like her for good. You laid out the case just like a real detective. Maybe you should try this lawyer thing more often. Still a pro at making the worst suggestions at the best moments, I see. The others won't believe us when we tell them about this. The real question is how I'll ever be able to visit a dentist again. Ouch, I can see that one feels rough. Guess it's time to quit the cake for good. Yeah, that's probably not happening. Speaking of, where are we going to celebrate? I can understand if you'd rather catch some sleep first. Right, before that, I need to thank you properly, Lily. No need to mention it, I mean, I barely helped. I feel like my hunches should be more useful, but I never pieced this together. No, that's wrong. Without you, I would have been crushed. Because I was convinced that anything was better than facing what I did. I'm not sure what I would have done. So thank you for sticking it out, so I could, remember what's important. I don't know how to say this. Aurelia, don't force yourself. Oh, all of our... And we switch perspectives. But, got a nice, tender moment between, the two wives. If we go by our original, decision. Even so, the celebration will have to wait. Sorry, but I think I need some time to think. This is about what he said at the end. Don't let that get to you. He said it was a victim, but he still got to make his own terrible choices that brought him here. You're right. I'm glad you defended me back there, but even so, kind of feel like I've brought this about in some way. It's where the real work starts. I haven't done enough to make it up to all those people. You don't have to make it that hard on yourself. This shouldn't be this complicated. It's obvious who should get all the blame. He deceived you. All of you were his victims, so why can't it all be put on him? Just because he's out of reach, you have to look for blame in each other and yourself? It shouldn't be like this. How is that fair? I know. I'd also rather have it be that simple. That's what I tried to tell myself when I was running away. Lying comes at a cost, but so does the truth. And the truth is that no matter how much I wish I could tell myself to move on, I haven't come to terms with it. Thanlead, the mess that man left behind still hasn't been fully cleaned up yet. Somebody has to take care of it. That's what I want to do. I don't see who else would. There could be others like Mr. Drill that feel similar to him. If I could show them there are people who care, they might not go down the same dark path. What can I really argue if you put it like that? There are also still some unresolved parts of the picture I have to think about. What? Well, the mystery seems to be solved to me. Unless you want to solve BU too. My gut tells me that'll be tricky. Might be a bit of a tall order, but it doesn't hurt to look into it. There's something else, though. How did Mr. Drill know I'd be here today? Huh? Maybe he just left that part up to chance? It would have been very risky for him to put that key into my mouth without a guarantee. He also must have entered the tower well before we arrived, and therefore had no way to confirm my arrival. The only people that knew for certain I was planning to come here were the people on the Queens of Crime server. You don't think that it's possible someone leaked it to him? Victoria got thrown out a while ago. I also really don't think you or Claire would do. That would really leave the spider. I'm not saying it definitely happened, but I gotta look into it just in case. So yeah, I've still got some work cut out for me. It's kind of overwhelming to see I brim with purpose again. Alright, something I'm still needed as an assistant here. Let's do it like back then. There's no mystery we can't solve together. Don't you have to go back soon? Nah, I can stick around. Perks of being location independent. That's a very tempting offer. Well, like I said, I think I need a bit of time to myself first to recover from all the scrutiny. Well, I see how it is. Just kidding, I get that. Well, if you do get stuck, don't hesitate to message me. Count on it. I'll be able to pass up your inspired takes when I get stuck. Okay, but then I'll also rely on you when I run into a crime scene next time. You know, most people manage to not have that happen. It shouldn't be that difficult. You don't get to say that ever again. Oh, which is a fair point. Can't really argue after everything today. Welcome to the club. Alright, we're gonna do the thing. Do we? If something like this doesn't get the proper ending, then what will? I don't even remember how it went though. No excuses, do the honors. Okay, well, another crime solved. But that was to be expected. After all, we are the unrivaled, the queens of crime. Say your catchphrase. Since when is there a catchphrase? You need one now. This case was too big. No thinking, quick. Alright, well. Oh, I know which one I want to say. Already on this chase is pretty good, but... Why did you do that? It doesn't even fit. Just sort of slipped out. I guess the day left its mark. I get that. Maybe I was right. You really got to get into that law career. No other way to make it fit now. How bad could it be, comparably? Hard pass. Ooh, at last. And in less than 3 hours. So I will be splitting this into multiple parts, although you'll know that by the time you up to here. That was an interesting ending. It leaves things open in terms of Dr. Lead, in terms of other characters like this Russian spider. So who knows? Blackrune might have more in store. Regard with these characters. But not God. He's gone. Unless they make a prequel. And will these rich people appear again? Who knows? Junior Zarocteria. Some jerk. I'm the most important character.
I am the judge. I was the most important.
What was up with Susan Holden actually? We didn't get closure on that really. Not all the questions get answered. But the important ones did.
It all came together, and you know, it made sense. That was quite the locked room setup, though. The revolving tower. Oh, there is some good music in this case. Thanks for playing. Well, you're welcome. Oh, shot cut off. That usually means there's more, and there is. Whoa. Yes, I was quite surprised myself. Apparently, I barely survived the fall and was found badly wounded on a nearby shore. I wish I could have shared some of my luck with Lewis. It's fair to say he deserved it more than me. My apologies for the trouble my hasty actions caused. I was thinking, well, we never found his body, so he was probably dumped into the sea. Is it possible he survived? I was like, then I thought that, no, well, obviously, Dariel would have, you know, strangled him or something, killed him up there and then thrown the body off just to make sure he would never talk. I should not have tried to confront the man by myself. But I felt it was my duty to not put the civilians at risk. Yes, I've heard the talk about classified poison and other weapons. Regarding that, it's more trouble worrying about than it's worth, don't you think? Why don't we forget about it and celebrate with some cake? Who knows where we are then? I see. And how did this trial turn out? Well, how to put this? I lost. So yeah, cannot pay. I know I can accept that. I'm prepared for the consequences. Explain, why did you do this? There's no way your mother agreed to that idea. No, this was all my idea. Technically it was Mr. Driel who tricked me to set it up. Something about that seemed fishy from the start, but I figured it was the best bet to figure out who's responsible if things went poorly. Oh? It almost sounds like you expected to lose. Why not? My gambles never pay off, or I wouldn't be here. The one thing that's taught me that is I always need to be prepared for my loss. Mother was always careful, and so she lasted so long in her business. But I knew something was bound to go wrong that day. That's why I prepared to force a trial. There could only be two possible outcomes that way. If I won, that would have meant money and at least it kept my mother's name clean. It seemed impossible for me to lose. Unless Miss Chase managed to pinpoint the real mastermind who manipulated us. But given my track record, I'm not surprised by this outcome. I frankly hoped for it. So you fought your losing streak by counting on it to continue. That's right. It's called hedging your bets. I'm surprised you cared that much about your mother. Enough that you went to such lengths to get justice for her death. Of course, she's my mother. You're her daughter, now. But that hasn't always been true, no? Luxem v. Holden. Typed documents received from who knows. A lawsuit filed against Mrs. Holden 16 years ago. Plaintiffs Case Lucem and Dorota Lucem. Defendant Melanie Holden. Tort negligence. Verdict N/A. Lawsuit withdrawn. Case Lucem. Dorota Lucem. Let's
Dorota Lusum is like lose the daughter, and in case Lusum is like lose the case. That's my guess anyway. The plaintiffs, the family of three, moved into a property managed by the defendant. Prior to the contract, the defendant characterized the property as being the perfect condition. 2 months after moving in, the gas leak occurred during the night. The plaintiffs, who were asleep together in the bedroom, suffered permanently debilitating injuries. The 5-year-old daughter slept in a different room, luckily remained unharmed, but was also subjected to serious risk of injury. Determined the leak occurred because of faulty piping. The defendant is alleged to be liable due to neglecting to perform proper inspection and maintenance of this property. Initial filing, it appeared the defendant was going to argue she had done her due diligence. This changed one with the lawsuit when an inspection of the property discovered a large amount of illicit substances. Those found hidden inside the walls, and the property had been partially damaged enough to create those hiding places. The defendant used this discovery to paint the plaintiffs in a negative light and change the defence to comparative negligence. She said solely that the plaintiff's actions would cause the leak to occur. And a week after the inspection, the plaintiffs withdrew the lawsuit. Their stated reason was they were facing criminal charges for possession of controlled substances and lacked the money to mount a defence and pursue this lawsuit at the time. It's a dirty tactic. And the 5-year-old daughter, you've done your homework, I see. Vetting is part of the business. You have every right to resent her for this. If there was ever any proof it really was her fault, we have looked into where those illegal substances came from. They were dealt to the previous tenants of the building, not the Lusums. They were the children of certain wealthy people, so the police did not investigate this possibility. So those were already in the house before your mother inspected them. That doesn't mean it was intentional. She was still inexperienced then. Intentional or not, she took full advantage of it. Or do you think she accused the Lusums in good faith? She was to realise too late. Why would she decide to take care of me if this was on purpose? But was that really done out of care? What else? Fear. She might have been unsure how much you knew. Or she see you as a useful tool, someone she could use because she felt indebted to her. Mrs. Holden was always quick to put all the blame on you, you know. It's like I didn't mess up. That's true. But shouldn't she have stepped in and protected you anyway? You're wrong. She was trying to help me. This entire plot, trying to get rid of Miss Chase. She did all of that to protect my future. Oh? You think she was planning to eventually pay off your debt with the money she'd make? Did she ever say anything suggesting she was planning to do so? Not directly. Well, this may be hypocritical to say, but your mother was a criminal. It's just as likely she was watching out for herself and her business. There's no real indication she was doing any of this for your sake. My apologies. I shouldn't speak too ill of the recently deceased. I'm already getting used to everyone doing that. I can't blame anyone looking from the outside thinking like that about her. But I believe she loved me in her own way, that she kept her distance so I grew as a person. I see. She waited for her so that you become a responsible adult. Someone who is ready to face the consequences of your actions. There's still plenty of tea, Susan. Feel free to help yourself. No need, I'm not thirsty right now. Oh well. I figured you might want some to brace yourself for the consequences. Say it. Don't drag this out needlessly. Should be obvious I'm still not able to pay up. If anything, I've got even more debt now. I could take a limb, sell off my organs. Just make it quick. You have quite the imagination. Well, it's nice to see my customers so motivated. Let's see. With interest, you should be up to about $500,000. It's a shame you can't make the payment. What a shame. A shame indeed. What should I ask of you instead? How about? Nothing. I'm already satisfied. Wait, what? I mean it. Consider your debt cancelled. You're messing with me. Why did I get ordered to come here then? I had to hear what your excuse would be. It convinced me. My condolences about your mother, but she was helping troublemakers. With her gone, the revilers have nowhere left to hide. That's good enough compensation. No way, what are you saying? You put it like her death was my accomplishment. You just explained that she went through with this plan because she cared about you, no? You're implying it's my fault then. Because I went to debt, my mother... Does that mean you don't want the steel? No, I'll take it. She'd call me stupid if I didn't. Good, that's relieving. I prefer stories where people really care about each other, not only themselves. There's one last thing you want to know about this. She really didn't know about the illegal drugs. That was obvious quickly. An illegal team. They pushed her to go with an aggressive strategy once it came to light. And once she had won, there were certain people who took an interest in it. A real estate manager who didn't look at things too closely. It might not have been her choice to get caught up this deeply in the underworld. She could have been lured into it by those people. Are you sure? I didn't choose this life either. It's not always fun. So maybe mother wasn't really... Maybe. No, that's a perfect excuse. This is your victory then. No dice, I never win. There's no chance I could have ever seen any of this as a victory. Well, geez. That answers some questions about Susan Holden then at least. And I'm not sure who the question mark is. It could be Viola Cadaverini. Because, you know, if she's now the head of the Cadaverinis, it would make sense that she's chasing after Revilers, but it was never explicitly said, although we did have the illusion with the T line, so maybe. But we did get some answers, and some more questions too while we were at it. And it definitely seems like Blackrune's setting up for something, which is, you know, I'm intrigued. But this case took long enough. I hope the next one is when I can finish more easily. Quickly, I should say. I didn't really mind the difficulty. It was quite fun actually. Especially made it satisfying to figure things out. But yeah. That would be the end of this series. I'm gonna have a bit more of a unusual case for next week's episode. I will spoil what it is, but it will definitely be fun in certain ways. And then I have another case planned after that. Both of these have already been recorded, by the way. But yeah, this has been. I should give us some thoughts on the case. It's this is definitely where a lot of the praise I've seen, just because of how well made it is in every aspect. All the different present options. You had like the UI with the especially with the lower room puzzle, figuring that out. All kinds of bells and whistles in this case, and pretty good mystery too when all is said and done. I don't really have anything else to say. It was just a really solid case that I enjoyed playing, and I hope you enjoyed watching. So stay tuned for next week, because next week I'm gonna have a bit of an unusual case, to say the least. So, and it's been the first time in a long time that I've done a different case. It's not Lighthouse of Lunacy. So, I hope you enjoyed this series, and as much as I did playing it. So, that's everything. I will see you next week.